on the next episode of AMC's Breaking Bad.
What does he know?
It's in the past. There's no telling where the lies begin and end.
And tell me the truth. I mean, isn't that what this is all about?
I never would have agreed to it if I know what he was gonna do. You gotta believe me. He's not getting off that easy.
Welcome to Behind the Scenes, GOV-TV's monthly look at the film and television industry in Albuquerque. I'm your host, Tony DellaFlora. As you can tell by the opening, the subject of today's show is Breaking Bad. As the hit TV show winds up its amazing 5-season run, we thought what better time to take a look back at what the production of the show has meant to Albuquerque, and in turn how Albuquerque shaped Breaking Bad. I have two guests today who can help us define the legacy of the show. I can't say legacy today. Albuquerque film liaison Ann Lerner.
Hi, Tony.
And Albuquerque's own Steven Michael Quezada, who portrayed DEA agent Steve Gomez on Breaking Bad. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you.
And it's this, both you guys know, Breaking Bad has just become an out-of-control phenomenon. It's amazing. and you have seen, you've been head of the film office since it started, and you've seen blockbuster films here: Terminator Salvation, Avenger, No Country for Old Men, The Lone Ranger, In Plain Sight, all these great popular shows, and they've all brought some kind of publicity to Albuquerque, New Mexico. But what has been different about Breaking Bad in terms of the scope and, you know, that it's reached around the world?
Breaking Bad has literally been a game changer. The amount of attention that the city of Albuquerque has gotten around the world, it's globally, is unbelievable. People can spell Albuquerque now.
That's great.
Well, maybe
That's
not.
a huge
maybe
step.
not. Okay.
That's a huge
more
step
more
forward.
people can now.
Yeah.
At least they know where the ABQ is.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Steven, you must have had some of the same reaction. What do you attribute this to? The amazing popularity of the show?
It's so not American television. It is so not the basic American television. I mean, American television has really beat that kind of, that style of writing, that style of shows to death. I mean, we're done with it. I mean, thank God for cable television, because then we would still not be done with it. It would still be the norm, which we show on television. And shows like Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, The Sopranos. I mean, there's a lot of shows now coming out, The Bridge. There's shows out there now that are in a long-form format, which deal with really hardcore, realistic, issues. Right. We know that Breaking Bad's kind of out there with the teacher becoming a meth. Even when we filmed that, we thought, well, who's going to buy this? The thing about it, though, is that it's American. It's what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's not like CSI. They find the body, they get the clues, they arrest the guy, they convict him or they don't. Next week, guess what? They find the body. So it's the same kind of thing. And so this long-form format is like that's what I'm calling it. Yeah. Sort of like a long movie. Yeah. Isn't what American television used to be. So now people from other countries look at it and they fall in love with it instantly, because it is a really strong way to tell a story. And I believe that is why it's such worldwide famous right now.
Okay, well, great. Well, I want to get back to more of that, but I do want to talk about, again, what it meant to have this show film here for almost 6 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, 6 years. I worked on it for 6 years, yeah.
Right.
From the pilot to the end.
Well, the economic impact, just roughly speaking, every episode, which is 8 days of filming, the economic impact, the direct spend to the city of Albuquerque is $1 million. Wow. And 90% of the crew, it started out with the pilot, there were 60% of the crew were New Mexican. When it ended, over 90% of the crew were New Mexican, getting high-paying, creative jobs.
That's right.
What was their, I mean, we know New Mexico crews are good, but not everybody knew that, right? I mean, what was their thinking at the end? It's like, oh, geez, these guys are really good. We don't need to bring in guys from LA. Is that essentially what happened?
That's where it's at right now. I could tell you I was at the studios yesterday to buy my Breaking Bad yearbook. And all those crews are still there. They're still working. Just because Breaking Bad is gone doesn't mean there's not jobs. They're in 2 new series at the studios. These are long-term jobs. I don't care what people say at the short-term jobs. They're long-term jobs. They're union jobs. They're benefits. There's things behind them that people don't want to talk about, which is driving me crazy when we start talking about the industry in Santa Fe. This is what we're supposed to do is create an industry and
Yeah.
create jobs. We built studios. We have the best crews in the country, really. I mean, the kind of movies that these crews work on, people don't even get that opportunity hardly in Hollywood, let alone living here in New Mexico out in the desert next to a big, beautiful mountain and working and being with
Right.
their family and being able to eat green chili, which is more important than
Right.
anything.
Or red. I'm going with the red.
Okay,
but-
red. That's
okay.
Well, to get back to the economic impact here, I used to compile the film directory for the state film office a few years ago, and that's where I got my first glimpse of how big the ripple effect is for when you're talking about when they're spending $1 million. Where does that money go? Well, we know it goes to Lowe's. We know it goes to building sets and things.
Not Lowe's, racks. By the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I remember one year, the first year I was doing it, I was calling people to tell them about getting their registration in and getting their name in there, and somebody from a shop in the Northeast High said, "Well, do you have a category for gift baskets?"
Right.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Gift baskets. We know at the wrap parties and everything,
yeah.
we sell tons of these things." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Well, it's not my determination as whether that category goes in, but you can talk to the film office people and get it in for next year maybe." Yeah. So I said, call them. So sure enough, next year we have 3 listings for stores that just deal in gift baskets. That was it.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me. It's like, wow, people don't really understand.
They don't.
Where does this money go? I know, like for the pizza scene in Breaking Bad, some pizza store made a bunch of money on that one. But what type of stuff does the money go to?
Let me give you another example, not so much of the direct spend, but of the indirect spend. One of the producers on Breaking Bad, I go to pick him up to go skiing, and he's just had to tow in new ski equipment, which he bought in New Mexico. Now, it's not rebatable, but it was less expensive than buying it in LA. Right. Oh, and that brand new BMW that he's driving, he bought it in Albuquerque because it was cheaper than buying it in LA.
Right.
So it's just mind-boggling how the ripple effect really goes through the city.
And
and
some
the
of these
state.
guys
And Brian
buy
owns a
houses.
home, and
Yeah.
Aaron
Yeah.
owns a home, and RJ owns a home, and those things are
Vince.
huge for New Mexico. That's
And you
big
own a
impact.
home, and you
I
can
do,
make your home
and I own
payment.
a home, and I'm making a house
You've since moved into a bigger house since the show
yeah,
started.
I have a little bigger house, and my family, it's been a long road for me. People don't know my journey, they think I'm this overnight guy that just stepped into the right room, It's been a long process for me. But yeah, we were able to leave a little 2-bedroom home with me and my wife and all my children into a home where my kids have their own room, and we have some space, and we're not trying to kill each other. Because I lived in such a small house that my kids would say, "Hey, I need new shoes." I go, "Well, then you're going to have to throw those ones away." Because we don't have room for both pairs of shoes. You have to have one pair of shoes when you live here. And that was the truth for us, and that's how we lived. But we believed that the industry would continue to grow here and that things would happen for people who really worked on their craft every day. And, and that's the one thing I have to throw out there. If you're going to get into this industry, you have to work on your craft every day. Don't work on trying to sell yourself as a celebrity every day, because that doesn't really go too far. It's about working every day on your craft, taking your acting classes, going out and performing, be involved in community theater. Always, if you're behind the camera, find out who's making student films, who's doing films. I got a late night talk show where we train kids. I mean, this all has come to position because of Breaking Bad. If it wasn't for Breaking Bad, people would have never taken me seriously.
Yeah. Well, speaking of actors too, not only did you get a great part of this, but how many other local actors got either lines or walk-ons or whatever? I mean, it was a lot of people, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot. But we did pull from Denver and from Dallas and from LA, and that's my thing when I get acting students, that they have to train themselves. That we don't get the opportunities that they do in LA to audition 4 or 5 times a week. I'm starting to do that now because I have to tape them and send them to LA. But if we're not fine-tuned, when they come in and audition us, well, guess what happens? We don't get the roles because we're not working on the craft. And the people in LA, they audition 4 or 5 times a week, so they get those, even if it's the 4 or 5 liners, they get those roles. So I'm really trying to push on the actor side. I know the crews are well taken care of, and we're doing really well on that end, but the talent side needs to be looked at. And because of Breaking Bad, the talent side gets a real shot at it now. Right. They're really looking at us as talent and looking at us that we can do on bigger roles than the 2, 3, 4 lines that we get offered.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to push for that and figure out how we can make that part of the incentives without really hurting the incentives or shying people away from wanting to come out here and work.
Right.
We have to meet in the middle there somehow.
I think we have a really good reputation. The city is film friendly, our crews are really strong, our talent is increasing, and people they don't want to fly people in, they would much rather, you know, hire somebody who's right here.
It makes a difference in a budget, obviously.
It's all about budget. I mean,
It is.
people don't realize when you're talking millions of dollars, it's about budget.
Yeah.
It really is, yeah.
Well, one of the other areas that I think Breaking Bad, maybe people don't know, but tourism.
Oh.
It's double tourism in New Mexico. I mean, that's what I read in the paper. I don't know the numbers for sure, but that's what the paper's saying, and that's what the journal's saying, and it's pretty amazing.
It's difficult to measure. It's one of the things when you see Vince Gilligan and Bryan Cranston on the Charlie Rhodes show, and Bryan says, and Albuquerque was so great. What is the worth of that, of Bryan Cranston?
Saying at the Emmys. That's what he says at the Emmys.
At the Emmys.
You know? I mean, he loves New Mexico so much that that's his first thank you is New Mexico. I mean, come on, that's huge. I mean, nobody does that. That's the kind of guy he is, though. But nobody does that. Nobody really thanks the community and the people where you're making your money. You know, I mean, we get sometimes we get people out here who don't talk very nice because they're used to a different lifestyle or they're from somewhere else. But why would you say anything when you're somewhere making money? I don't get it.
You don't need to. But, well, for instance, we have, I mean, it's got its own little cottage industry now. We have trolley, bike, limo tours now. You can get around the city any way you want now.
Those guys sell out in like 5 minutes. They can only do them like on the weekends because, you know, it's very popular. The candy lady selling, you know, her candy, and it's candy. I want everybody to make sure that they know that it's candy. She's selling it. It represents something that they used on Breaking Bad, yes, but it's candy. It's helped her. She's been struggling for many, many years to stay open. You know, Old Town's expensive to have a place there, people. It really is. You got to have money coming in to keep a shop in Old Town, and she survived, and now she's growing because of it, and I'm very happy for her.
And the Bathing Bad products that Keith West Harrison is doing with
bath salts,
and the lotions,
and the donut guys,
Rebel Donuts,
the Rebel Donuts,
it's
doing
great.
the donuts and all of that. You know, it's part of who we are. I mean, you look at it for what it is, right? We're making fun of what the series was doing, you know.
Right.
And that's what it is.
Plus, if people are flying in here from out of town just to see locations, they're not from here. They're going to be staying in a hotel. They're going to be eating at restaurants.
That's right.
Well, I have to tell you, I was telling you before the show, I went out to interview Fran and Louis Padilla, who own the house that was the Walter White house that was used for the exteriors in the show yesterday. And it was incredible. We were sitting in her living room. Well, first of all, I went out to my car to get something. As I'm coming back into the house, a taxi cab pulls up. It's a gentleman from Washington, D.C., who's passing through town, who took a cab from the airport to come out and get a picture of this house. And he was so thrilled. So I go in, we talk, we do the interview a little further. She's telling us she's got a book of all the thousands, literally thousands of people who stop by her house on a monthly basis. And so we decided to walk out to do the interview out there. There were 6 people, 6 tourists outside in the street taking pictures. 2 from Belgium, 2 from Texas, 2 from California. And they were so excited. And then the fact that they got to talk to the owners of the actual home, they were thrilled. And one of them had to take a rock back to Belgium. They thought that was the epitome. He asked first, but he said, "I need to take a rock back because this is so important." So it just you know, I'd heard people talk about the impact, but to see this group of people gathering around the house was pretty incredible.
It's crazy. I'm telling you, it's crazy. I can't even go and get something to eat. I can't even go. We're walking around Walmart and they're following us, you know. I can't get through an airport no more, you know.
Isn't that great?
It's cool because those are the fans that support your work and, you know, believe in what you're doing, and that's the best reward that you can get, you know. But it's just crazy. You just never think that that's going to happen to you, you know.
Well,
I wear sunglasses and hats, and they recognize me. There's no getting away from it, you know.
Well, the publicity has just been incredible. You had told me a story about the guy who teaches your kids at Tell me about that.
Well, you know, at PAPA, my kids go to the charter school, PAPA, the Public Academy for Performing Arts, and the science teacher went to Siberia to do science. They're doing a documentary on the science project thing they were doing up there. He was up there. He says the first week, he goes, they were rude to him. You know, nobody would talk to him, and he was just kind of left out of the whole, you know, equation and all this. And finally, one guy just decides to ask him, so, you know, where are you from? He goes, well, I'm from Albuquerque. You're from where? You're from Albuquerque? No way. He goes, Breaking Bad, it's my favorite show in the whole, I mean, in Siberia, you know? And he goes, yeah, I teach Gomez's kids. And he goes, no way. And all of a sudden, from a nobody, he was a rock star. They take him out to dinner and pay for his dinner, take him out to drinks. All of a sudden, they were just, he was the man, you know? And before that, he wasn't anybody. And that's just one little story from one, you know, I couldn't imagine.
Siberia.
Yeah, up in Siberia.
Yes.
Siberia.
Yes.
Yeah,
well, again, yeah, Fran was telling us she's got visitors from Iceland, Australia, everywhere you can think of. I don't even know if they have TV in some of these places, but
they got Netflix.
They got Netflix, right? That's right. Well, and you were saying before, just now, just going through an airport for you is an experience.
It is. It's crazy. I just, you know, it's unbelievable. People are bold, you know. I mean, they're such huge Breaking Bad fans and it's not autographs anymore, you know. It's all pictures. You don't have to sign anything anymore. All people want to do is take a picture with you, and that means more to them. You know, because then they could put that on their Facebook or they could tweet it, or they could, you know, print it and they have it in their, you know, their office. Oh, this is where I ran into Gomez, you know, for Breaking Bad. You know, it's amazing that happened, you know, to me, living in Albuquerque, not wanting to leave because this is where I wanted to make my career happen, you know, as a comic, whatever it took, whatever I needed to do. And so it's important that we continue to keep giving our children that we're training and actors that want to dream from here, those types of opportunities to live here. You know, our universities are great here. The problem is we educate our children and they move off because there's no industry here. Right. You know, Ann Lerner, she's a champion for that. She's the reason why we continue to think that we have a prayer here. And she's always, you know, very nice to people who come out. She sells this place as big as anybody can, and we're continually trying to, as a local level, rise to that occasion and do products and productions at that level. I think our reputation is very strong. I think Albuquerque is on the map.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be off anytime soon. Something a little more serious. One of the other things that Breaking Bad left us was new legislation this year. You were up there campaigning for it. Talk about the Breaking Bad bill a little bit.
Well, that kind of helps us with television. Television, I think, is really important to New Mexico because it's longer, and the odds of, you know, making money for, again, 5-6 years are higher, you know, which is good. This is good for the economy. You know, $1 million an episode, that's a lot of money to this state, and that's in 8 days. That's what people don't realize. An episode takes 8 days to shoot, and, you know, we're making that kind of money here. Our crews are working. And that's why it was really important for us to do that, and it was great that the governor signed that. And that what that does is that gives 30% of the tax rebate, right, back. I don't want to misspeak, but yeah, it's a tax rebate for 30%. And the thing is that they got to do 6 or more episodes in order to get that. So we're really kind of locking them into a little long term here, not come here and shoot a pilot and then, you know, let's give it, and then it does, because it's too risky. Hollywood and then, you know, the major networks are that way. You know, they'll give you 1, 2, 3, and if you're not getting the numbers, you're gone. It's the cool thing about cable. Cable will show your season. So it's feasible for them to come out here, shoot a season, and know that if they get picked up by a cable network, that they're going to show that season, and then they'll look at the numbers and then figure out if they're going to go into a next season. It's huge. You know, cable's huge for us. It's huge for artists, and it's really important that we get a bite of that.
Yeah. Well, Ann, have you noticed any impact just since the beginning of the year, since that legislation got passed?
Well, right now we have 2 TV shows that are in production. We have Night Shift and Killer Women. Killer Women just started this week. And what's interesting is that they both are set in San Antonio, Texas. So Albuquerque is doubling for San Antonio.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. One of our strengths is that we can double for a lot of different cities. For example, did you see that movie Beer Fest?
Yes.
We doubled for Munich.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was in Beer Fest.
You were?
I was the captain of the Mexican drinking team.
Oh, that's great. I'll have to watch that again. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we've doubled for Cincinnati and Wild Hogs. I mean, we've doubled for many different places. So.
In terms of inquiries, though, for people wanting to come here and shoot. Have you seen an increase also?
Definitely have very, very busy in the film office. Besides those 2 movies that are in production, I have 3 smaller movies in pre-production that are going to be filming this fall, and so many calls and interests and scripts, and it's fun.
Is Albuquerque and New Mexico getting kind of sexy? Is like people want to say, yeah, we're filming in New Mexico now? I mean, are you getting any of that sense that this is going to be kind of the hip place to shoot?
It's a legitimate place, you know, more than anything. I think anything coming out of here, people are really looking at it. I think it's a good opportunity for people who want to be executive producers and have money and want to kind of break into the industry that way. Because, you know, Hollywood's, it's not as big as people think. It looks big on television, but, you know, it's the same people working around, and they switch and they move and they go from this network to that way, you know. It's just kind of like that, you know, when you're looking at the studios. And so you go to the studios and say, I got $10 million in a really good script. They look at you and go, we got $10 million in a really good script. Maybe you should go into the restaurant business, right? But what's cool about New Mexico is that we could put stuff out and film stuff here and get it into Hollywood and get it through, you know, get distribution and play in the game. And that's what's important for New Mexico.
And one of the strengths that Albuquerque has is our close proximity to LA. You know, our competing states, Georgia and Louisiana and Michigan, are farther away. And Louisiana, Hollywood is still very much the powerhouse for production. And when you can fly here in an hour and a half, that's easy.
Oh yeah, it's a it's a quick plane ride. I mean, Dean Norris used to always, when we were done, he was home for the weekend. Now he's on Under the Dome. And he's there for the whole 6 months they're shooting. He's in South Carolina. By the time he flies to LA, he just has to get on a plane and fly back, because that's what it takes for him to make it there and back. So he can't go home. And so that's what they love about New Mexico. They have access to just to go home, even, which is important for us. I just did a movie in Oklahoma, which I wish they'd have done here, but I spent a month in Oklahoma, and it's hard. It's hard when you're away from your family the whole month. You know, it's tough.
Yeah. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit. Vince Gilligan, the producer and mastermind behind this whole thing, has said in numerous interviews that Albuquerque really became an integral part of the show. I mean, aside from the tax incentives, they really grew. What was it? It does seem like they embraced Albuquerque in a way that a lot of these other productions I mentioned before they didn't hate Albuquerque, but they didn't necessarily make it a character in the show. How did you notice that? Did that evolve over time?
Well, this is the thing. That's what I think those shows lacked, and I think they missed the boat on that. That Breaking Bad decided, hey, we're going to use that, and the world fell in love with what New Mexico was about, and the adobe and the look and the toughness and the Wild West. This was the Wild West, you know. People don't realize this was the Wild West. We're living here right now, and so people who don't want to look at that and say, oh, it makes us look bad, and you know, they obviously didn't grow up where I grew up, you know, because where I grew up, it was just an urban version of the Wild West. And so it was cool that Breaking Bad used that as one of the characters in their production, and look what it paid. Not only the brilliant acting, you know, plus the brilliant acting and the brilliant writing, but Albuquerque itself became this great place. Now everybody wants to do something there.
Not to mention the photography. Michael Slovis was the director of photography, and he brought a certain look to it. He embraced our amazing cloud shows and the landscape.
Yeah, they love the clouds.
Oh, just so beautiful.
The time lapse, the Sandias with the clouds flying over it. Tahajli, which is beautiful.
The city at night. They just really, you know, it's genius work in my mind.
The streets, the barrios, everything, man.
Everything.
Who we are. It's who we are. People get mad at showing who we are, and I love that they're showing who we are, because we have really nice places too. But that's another story, you know.
I wanted to ask you. A lot of people know that you started as a stand-up comedian, and I think one of the questions a lot of people have is, how did you suppress that to do Gomez on that show? I mean, it'd be hard not to be cracking jokes.
I didn't start as a stand-up comic. I did theater, and I was a theater actor, and I came back to Albuquerque, and I wrote plays, and I wrote a couple of comedies, and they were very successful. One was called The First Chicano President, which people loved, and I would do it every couple of years, and we'd sell the chemo out. But selling the chemo out equaled into break even. So there was no, theater, again, there's no money. And so I had to figure out a way to feed my family, and so I kind of figured out how to become a stand-up comic, and I fell in love with it. Once after my first show, and everybody laughed, and it just felt very satisfying, and I go, wow, I could do this. This is something I can do. I didn't look back, and you're right. Once comedy kicked in, I didn't look back for 20 years. And you know, being a road comic's hard on you, and it's tough. And it's tough on your family, and it's tough on kids, and it's just tough on everybody. And so in 2005, I decided Grubb had bought the talent agency, Applause, I believe what it was, and he called me and goes, "Hey, I'm looking for actors." I go, "They don't have parts for Mexicans on movies and television, so I don't want to do it." Because in the 80s, that's where I got disheartened, that there was only one role, it's Pepe, and 5 million Mexicans are auditioning for Pepe around the country. So, you know, you're better off buying a lottery ticket, really.
Right.
I mean, that's what the odds were.
Yeah.
And so, so comedy kicked in. But in 2005, I decided I'll join his, his agency. Went out for First Snow. I went out and got the role of Enrique the mechanic on First Snow, and from there things started kicking in. That's what this business is all about. If you're working, you'll continue to start working, but you have to get that first break, that first in.
Yeah.
So so that's why I'm here where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wrap up in a couple minutes here, but I want to ask both of you, after this, this whole 6-year journey that you've both been on, what are each of you going to be doing on September 29th when the final episode airs? Stephen?
I'm flying to Washington, D.C. because I'm really concerned about education in New Mexico and trying to fix that. And I'm trying to change and get people to look at how we teach our children and how to give kids choices in education instead of this cookie cutter, Common Core. I don't want to get BS that we're doing for our children. So unfortunately, hopefully I'll be watching it on my iPad and flying out and tweeting. I'm going to be tweeting and posting pictures and some behind the scenes stuff that no one's ever seen before that I took and couldn't really release until after the finale. So that's what I'll be doing. Unfortunately, kids first for me.
Okay. And what about you? It's got to be like losing a family almost. I mean,
I'm going to be glued to the television set in my home in Corrales with my husband, and I'm going to be very, very quiet while I watch it.
I shut the phone off.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the question I have to ask, you're going to tell me the ending, right?
Yeah. It ends.
It ends with the credits roll.
Brilliant. Just,
and
the credits go.
We'll save it for the next show. How about
that?
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Thank
Steven
you
Michael
for having us
Quezada
on.
and Ann Lerner for being on this
so
show.
much.
This was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll come back and see us next month on Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, Tony DellaFlora. We'll see you next time.